Welcome to our channel. Today's story revolves around CEO Tuan and Hana, a gentle yet deeply emotional love story. Due to his busy work schedule, Tuan often has to travel, leaving Hana alone in a large, quiet house. Realizing this, he brings home a small puppy to keep her company. From that moment on, Hana's life slowly begins to change. She takes care of the puppy, talks to it, and rediscovers the simple joys of everyday life. The little dog not only eases her loneliness but also helps strengthen the bond between her and Tuan, as they learn to care for and understand each other more deeply. If you enjoy heartwarming, meaningful stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. After countless days consumed by meetings, negotiations, and long business trips, CEO Tuan slowly began to notice a quiet change in Hana. The once lively and warm-hearted girl had grown increasingly silent in the vast, elegant house that now felt far too large for just one person. Her laughter, which used to echo softly through the halls, had faded into occasional smiles that never quite reached her eyes. Each time Tuan returned home, he could sense the loneliness lingering around her, even though she tried her best to hide it behind gentle words and reassuring gestures. It wasn't that Hana complained, she never did, but the absence of genuine joy in her eyes spoke louder than anything she could say. One evening, after finishing a meeting earlier than expected, Tuan sat alone in his office, replaying recent moments in his mind, Hana standing by the window, staring into the distance, or quietly preparing dinner without her usual humming. A subtle ache formed in his chest as he realized that while he had been tirelessly building his career, Hana had been left alone to carry the weight of quiet, empty days. He knew he couldn't always be by her side, but he also couldn't bear the thought of her feeling abandoned in his absence. That was when an idea, simple yet heartfelt, began to take shape. On his way home the next day, instead of heading straight to the house, Tuan made an unexpected stop. After carefully choosing, he brought back a small, adorable puppy with soft, fluffy fur and bright, curious eyes that sparkled with life. The little creature was full of energy, gently wagging its tail as if it already sensed it was about to become part of something special. Holding the puppy in his arms, Tuan felt a rare sense of calm. He hoped, more than anything, that this small companion could bring warmth back into Hana's days. When he finally arrived home, Hana was surprised to see him so early. As she stepped into the living room, her eyes fell upon the tiny puppy in his arms. For a brief moment, she stood still, as if unsure whether what she was seeing was real. Then, slowly, curiosity and warmth began to replace the quiet sadness in her gaze. Tuan walked closer and gently placed the puppy into her arms, his voice soft and sincere. "I know I can't always be here," he said, "but I want you to have someone who can stay with you, someone who can make you smile when I'm away." The moment Hana held the puppy, something inside her seemed to melt. The little dog nuzzled into her hands, letting out a soft, playful sound that instantly brought a genuine smile to her face, one that Tuan hadn't seen in a long time. Her eyes lit up, no longer distant or empty, but filled with a quiet, returning joy. In that simple, tender moment, Tuan knew he had made the right choice. It wasn't just about giving her a pet, it was about giving her companionship, warmth, and a reminder that even when he wasn't physically there, he was always thinking of her. From the day the little puppy entered her life, everything around Hana began to shift in the most gentle yet meaningful way. The once quiet mornings in the large house were now filled with soft footsteps, tiny paws tapping across the floor, and the cheerful energy of a new companion who seemed to follow her everywhere. Hana found herself waking up earlier than usual, not out of obligation, but out of a growing sense of excitement. The first thing she would do each morning was check on the puppy, who would greet her with an eager wag of its tail and bright, affectionate eyes that instantly warmed her heart. She decided to name the puppy May, inspired by its soft, cloud-like white fur that looked as light and comforting as the sky on a peaceful day. Calling out its name quickly became her favorite habit, and every time May came running toward her, Hana felt a small but undeniable happiness blooming inside her chest. She carefully prepared meals for May, making sure it was well-fed and healthy, often talking to it while she worked as if she were sharing her thoughts with an old friend. At first, it felt a little strange speaking out loud in an empty room, but May's attentive presence made it feel natural, even comforting. As the days passed, Hana began to build a routine centered around caring for May. She would gently brush its fur, laugh softly when it playfully resisted bath time, and spend long moments simply sitting on the floor with it curled up beside her. In those quiet hours, Hana found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She would tell May about her childhood memories, about the simple joys she once had, and about the subtle loneliness she felt whenever Tuan was away on business trips. Though May couldn't respond with words, its calm presence and unwavering attention made Hana feel heard in a way that eased the weight in her heart. In the afternoons, Hana often took May out into the garden. The once still and silent space now felt alive with movement and laughter. May would run across the grass, chasing butterflies or tumbling clumsily over its own paws, and Hana would follow, her laughter ringing freely through the air. These small, ordinary moments became the highlights of her day. She no longer spent her time staring out the window in quiet longing. Instead, she was fully present, engaged in the simple, beautiful rhythm of life unfolding around her. More than just a pet, May became a source of emotional comfort, a silent companion who filled the empty spaces that had once felt so heavy. Hana realized that while Tuan's absence was still something she felt, it no longer defined her days. With May by her side, she discovered a new kind of strength and warmth, one that came from connection, care, and the ability to find joy in the smallest details. Slowly but surely, her world was no longer defined by loneliness, but by the quiet happiness that grew stronger with each passing day. As time quietly passed, the once silent and somewhat lonely house transformed into a place filled with warmth, laughter, and a gentle sense of life that could be felt in every corner. Hana no longer spent her evenings sitting alone in stillness, waiting for time to pass. Instead, her days naturally flowed with small routines centered around May, whose presence had become an inseparable part of her life. The soft sound of paws running across the floor, the playful energy that followed her from room to room, and the comforting companionship during quiet moments all blended into a rhythm that made the house feel like a true home again. What surprised Hana the most was not just how much joy May brought into her life, but how deeply it changed her from within. She found herself smiling more often, even when she was alone. The weight of loneliness that once lingered in her chest had gradually faded, replaced by a sense of calm and quiet contentment. Each time she spoke to May, whether she was sharing a small story from her day or simply whispering her thoughts into the stillness, she felt heard, understood, and less alone. In caring for May, Hana had unknowingly begun to heal parts of herself that she hadn't fully recognized before. Whenever Tuan returned home from his business trips, he immediately noticed the difference. The moment he stepped through the door, he was no longer greeted by silence, but by the sound of laughter and the cheerful chaos of a tiny dog rushing excitedly to welcome him. Hana would follow closely behind, her face glowing with a brightness that had once been missing. She would eagerly tell him about May's little adventures, how it chased after a butterfly for nearly an hour, or how it stubbornly refused to eat until she sat beside it. Her voice carried a liveliness that filled the space between them, making every reunion feel warmer and more meaningful. Tuan would often pause in those moments, quietly taking in the scene before him. Watching Hana laugh, seeing her eyes sparkle with genuine happiness, he felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude. The decision he had made, to bring May into her life, had turned out to be far more meaningful than he had imagined. It wasn't just about easing her loneliness, it had given her a companion who stayed by her side when he couldn't, someone who brought light into her days in ways he alone could not always manage. More importantly, this small change brought Tuan and Hana closer together in an unexpected way. Their conversations became more natural and filled with warmth, often centered around the little moments Hana experienced each day. Tuan listened more attentively, realizing how important it was to truly be present, not just physically, but emotionally as well. In return, Hana felt his care more deeply, understanding that even in his absence, he had always been thinking of her happiness. In the end, May was more than just a pet, it became a quiet bridge between two hearts. Through simple acts of care, shared stories, and genuine thoughtfulness, Hana and Tuan rediscovered a deeper connection. And in that connection, they found something truly lasting, a love that grew stronger not through grand gestures, but through the gentle, everyday moments that made life feel complete.